The Dallas Stars are back on the ice tonight as it is a rematch of the 2020 Stanley Cup Finals. The Stars take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in what should be an interesting matchup and a test of strength for both squads. On today's episode, we'll take a look at the Lightning and see what they've been up to through the first month of the season. We'll talk about the special teams and the roles that they'll play in this game and talk about the premier goaltending matchup that we have. Jake Oettinger versus Andrei Vasilevskiy. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, your local expert on all things Dallas Stars hockey, coming to you on this Tuesday, November 15th. And whether this is your first time here or you are a recurring listener, thank you for stopping by and making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day. If you're watching on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening on audio only, be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platform. We are free and available no matter where or how you may choose to listen. And you can also find us on social media at Locked On Stars on both Instagram and Twitter, as well as my personal Twitter account at Dane_Lewis. Let's jump into today's episode. Another Dallas Stars game day, game 2 of 3 on the road for the Stars. They get the win in Philadelphia on Sunday, and now they shift their attention to the Tampa Bay Lightning, the 2020 and 2021 Stanley Cup champions and Stanley Cup champion runner-ups in the 2022 finals. A team that has been absolutely dominant for the past 3, even 4 seasons. They won the President's Trophy back in 2019 when the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup, but many will remember in that playoffs, they actually were swept by the 8 seed Columbus Blue Jackets in that first round, which was absolutely insane and one of the craziest Stanley Cup playoff upsets we've seen in recent memory. And I don't know if we've seen something quite like it since. Absolutely insane stuff. But nonetheless, this Lightning team has been a force to be reckoned with over the past several seasons, and it doesn't appear that they are that way this year. Although they are still a good team, they seem to have maybe finally come back down to earth after a very dominant stretch of seasons. They are 8-6-1 overall as of right now, the time of recording this on Monday afternoon. That is best for third in the Atlantic Division. They are 4-2-1 at home, so a pretty good home record, but whenever they have to go away from Tampa, they don't quite play as well, and even when they do play at home, running to some trouble every now and then, although above 500 at home is about all you can ask for in the National Hockey League, so definitely a tough task facing the Stars going into this game, and part of the reason that they look a little bit different in the record book, it has to do with the fact that this team in general looks just a little bit different. The roster especially is missing some key pieces, guys that have been key contributors to this team over the past several seasons on their way to multiple Stanley Cup Finals appearances. Ondrej Palat, maybe the most notable. He was a 49-point guy for the Lightning last season. He joined the surging red-hot New Jersey Devils in free agency. Anthony Cirelli, who was a 43-point guy for the Lightning, still on the team, but currently on the LTIR with a shoulder injury, should be back for the Lightning later this month, but doesn't appear that he's going to be playing in this game against the Stars. And Ryan McDonagh, who was a 26-point guy for the Lightning last season, joined the Nashville Predators in the offseason. So the Stars already seen McDonagh a few times this year, but a few key guys missing. And I think that was the strength of this Lightning team, is they were a top-heavy team that had some fantastic talent in their top 4 defensive pairings and even on the top 6 of their offense. But they were just an incredibly deep team. They had guys on their bottom lines, on their bottom pairings that could hurt you in a lot of ways. And now they lose a little bit of that depth and lose quite a bit of veteran presence on the team. And I think that they are just readjusting to life without some of these players. But all in all, they still have some very good talent and some very familiar talent with people that have been following the league for a long time. Steven Stamkos, the captain of the team, 7 goals so far on the season, 15 points in total. Nikita Kucherov, 7 goals, 16 assists. Braden Point, 6 goals, 10 assists as well. And then you have guys like Brandon Hagel, who the Lightning got at the trade deadline from the Chicago Blackhawks last season. Alex Killorn, Victor Hedman, who's a Norris Trophy winner, a Conn Smythe Trophy winner, and Mikhail Sergachev, who just signed a new contract that will kick in next season worth $8.5 million a season. The Lightning really like what they've seen from him, and he's off to a very good start to the season. And of course, on this roster, the Lightning boasting a few former Dallas Stars and Vladislav Nemestikov and Corey Perry, one of those guys playing a little bit longer in Dallas than the other, but still, nonetheless, we have some former Stars playing in this matchup. And of course, when you talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning and you look at their roster, you have to talk about their star goaltender, Andrei Vasilevskiy, a Vezina Trophy winner, another Conn Smythe Trophy winner on the roster. But this is a weird year because Andrei Vasilevskiy, through the first month of the season, doesn't look quite like himself. He has started 11 games for the Lightning so far this season. He has a 5-5-1 record with a .310 goals against average and an .898 save percentage. Just very weird numbers to see from a guy like Vasilevskiy through the early stages of this year, but it is a long season. It's early, so maybe this is just a slow start to the season for him, and we'll see things pick back up. But maybe this is something that the Stars can take advantage of, having a struggling goaltender on a team that, is good and they're fine. We're going to talk about their offensive numbers a little bit later here in just a few minutes, but this isn't the Tampa Bay Lightning that we've been familiar with over the past few years, and it can feel very daunting going into this building on Tuesday night to play this game. Although, the Stars still should take this matchup seriously. You want to take every road game seriously because it's very difficult to win games consistently on the road in the NHL, but the Lightning team this year isn't quite as threatening or daunting, it seems, as they have been in the past. They still have good players. They can still very much win games, especially at home. But I think that this is going to be a very interesting matchup. I think, the past 3 or 4 years, you go play a game in Tampa Bay, it's almost just a death sentence. They were just so loaded with talent. They were so good at home in the crease with their skaters. And now this year, they're fine. They're just okay to start the season. They look like they could make the playoffs, but they don't necessarily look like a favorite to make a deep run. They might make the first round, win a game or two, at least if the season ended today. And that's, kind of the crazy part about the NHL is we could be looking back on this first month of the season in April or May, and the Lightning could be the top seed in the Atlantic Division. Who knows? And that's just how the Eastern Conference is this year. And the Atlantic Division as a whole is very top heavy right now, with Boston clearly leading the way, and everyone else is just kind of lining up to try and get second and third place in this division. So this is very likely going to be a playoff team, and I don't think that this team is in a state of panic, but they appear to be slowing down just a little bit after such a long stretch of dominance. But you still, again, have to take this team seriously, and I think the Stars will do just that because they know better than anyone that a lot of the guys on this roster can burn you and hurt you in a lot of ways on both sides of the ice. So you got to find ways to keep the top guys in check and try to challenge, the guys on the bottom six, the defensemen that you're not as familiar with. You got to challenge those guys to beat you. You got to slow down Stamkos. You got to slow down Kucherov, Hedman, Sergachev. These are guys that you have to try to contain and have to try to control and dare the bottom players on this roster to beat you. And if the Stars are able to do that, I think they have a great chance in this game. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will take a look into some of the numbers for both these teams. Going into this matchup, I think special teams will be a huge part of this game. We'll talk about the power play and penalty kill for the Stars and the Lightning right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those there as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fixed. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action happening around the sports world. BetOnline.net is where the game starts. Moving right along on this Tuesday game day episode of Locked On Stars, thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and if you're listening on audio only, give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platform. Thank you guys for the continued support on this podcast. Let's continue to talk about tonight's matchup. The Stars traveling to Tampa for their first and only matchup against the Lightning in Florida. They will, of course, play later in the season in Dallas, and this is going to be a very interesting matchup because we just talked about this Tampa team. They're not quite the team that they used to be, or at least so it appears through the first month of the season, but this is still very much a team that can hurt you on offense in stretches, and at certain points in time, they can absolutely score in bunches. Although they aren't necessarily leading the pack anywhere in the grand scheme of things, this team is about middle of the pack, 14th in the league in goals for, just above the middle of the pack. They have 49 goals so far this season, and their power play is in a very similar position. They are 14th in the league in power play percentage, 23%. The power play for this Lightning team. So there's moments where the offense and the power play look really sharp, but then there's also moments where they get slowed down. Sometimes the defense or some goaltending stumps them and they aren't able to get very much production. Although you look on the other side of the ice, I think the penalty kill is one of the best in the league so far for the Lightning this season. They rank 6th in the league at 83.1% on the penalty kill. They are up there with the Stars as a top 10 killing unit. The Stars just a little bit better, closer to the top 3. But I mean, you look at the numbers, and then you look at the guys on this penalty kill, especially the first PK unit for the Lightning, and you absolutely understand why they are so good. Nick Paul, Vlad Nemestikov, Victor Hedman, and Ian Cole. Vlad Nemestikov, Stars fans especially should know, even though he was only with the Stars for a brief moment at the end of last season and in the playoffs. He was such a versatile player because you could plug and play him just about anywhere, but especially on the penalty kill. He had some really good PK moments for the Stars in the regular season and postseason last year. And so now you plug him in with some other really talented skaters on this Lightning team, especially a guy like Victor Hedman. And that is a recipe for success. And then you mix in Andrei Vasilevskiy, who, even though his numbers are down a little bit, still a goaltender that you have to take seriously. And he's going to have great nights just like any other netminder in this league. And so it's just a recipe for success on the penalty kill for the Lightning. And so this is really going to come down to which penalty kill cracks first. And that's, of course, assuming that we see penalties in this game, which I think that we will. You look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, they are 9th in the NHL in penalty minutes at 180, and Dallas surprisingly has slowed down a little bit with the amount of penalties that they've committed. They did have a pretty rough day in Philadelphia on Sunday, but thankfully the PK went 6 for 6. But Dallas, as of right now, ranks 14th in the league in penalty minutes at 154. So this is very much a game that could include a decent amount of time on the man advantage for both teams. And the power play for the Lightning might not be at the top of the league, but they are certainly boasting some units that can explode pretty much at any time. I mean, you look at the 2 power play units that they have, and it is just loaded with talent. The top power play unit for the Lightning, Brandon Hagel, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, and Mikhail Sergachev. I mean, that alone, even if it was just those guys for 1 minute, would have any team in the league scared. And all 5 of those guys can score from pretty much anywhere on the ice. Sergachev really has taken off and kind of come into his own. Hedman, I think, is still kind of the premier defenseman on this team, but Sergachev has more points and seems to be producing a little bit more than Hedman, although Hedman is doing just fine on his own. He is on that second power play unit that includes Killorn, Colton, Corey Perry, Nick Paul, and of course Victor Hedman. And if you have a Conn Smythe and Norris Trophy winner heading up your second power play unit, I think that you're doing something right with your roster, and you have some really good players if you can have a guy like Victor Hedman not even be on your top power play unit. And so you got to keep those guys in check. If you're the Stars, you have to play discipline, because if you give the Tampa Bay Lightning 6 chances on the power play like you gave the Flyers, you're not going to go 6 for 6 on the PK. The Lightning will connect at least once, if not more, with the amount of talent that they have on the ice. So the Stars must play a very disciplined and clean game and not give the Lightning chances on the power play, while on the other side, they need to do their best to draw penalties and put the Lightning on the killing situation, because they rank 9th in the NHL in penalty minutes with 180. So it is very likely that the Stars will get their fair share of looks on the power play in this game. And it's not just the Lightning in this matchup that have really strong power play units. The Stars also boast a plethora of talent on the man advantage. Of course, the top power play unit for the Stars is one of the best in the league right now. Joe Pavelski, Jamie Benn, Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, and Miro Heiskanen. But if it's not those guys, the second unit can come in and do some damage as well. Maybe not as much damage as the first group, but Mason Marchment, Tyler Seguin, Wyatt Johnston, Nils Lundqvist, and Ryan Suter. Certainly a formidable group of players that can do some damage and apply some pressure on any penalty killing unit and any kind of goaltender. And I'm really excited to see, one, if the Stars can get the Lightning in penalty trouble, and if they do, if they are able to execute at a high level, because the Lightning, while they do commit a lot of penalties, they have one of, if not the best penalty killing groups in the National Hockey League. And it's really just going to be a war of attrition as far as penalties. And if there's no penalties in this game, I think that makes things even more interesting, because I think that gives the Stars an advantage, because they are one of the best scoring teams in the league at 5-on-5 and on the power play as well. And I do think, at least at this point in time, they have the better goaltender. Jake Oettinger has been playing better this season in his games played than what we've seen from Andrei Vasilevskiy through the 11 games he's played this season. So this is going to be an interesting game as far as it plays out. Sometimes we talk about, penalties and special teams playing a huge role in games, and neither team really commits that many penalties. But both these teams on the top half of the league in penalty minutes. So I think it's fair to say that we are going to see our fair share of power plays in this game. And if you're the Stars, you have to try to be on the end of receiving more, and you have to get more power play looks than the Lightning. If you do that, and Jake Oettinger plays another good game, you are very much going to have a great opportunity to win this game. And you can't really ask for much more than that. If you can start off this road trip with 2 straight wins, you have a ton more confidence going into Florida to play the Panthers on Thursday. And then maybe you get a sweep of the road trip, which would be absolutely huge for this team. The Stars haven't, had a whole lot of success early on the road this season, at least consistently. And this would be a huge win for them to go in against a quality Eastern Conference opponent, a team that is likely going to be in the playoffs. And if you can get a solid win and beat them at their own game, I think that would speak volumes to the Stars team and give them plenty of confidence that could snowball over, the next week and even the following weeks and following months into this season. I'm really excited to see how this team and this game unfolds, especially as far as special teams are concerned. Well, we're going to take one more quick break, but when we come back, we will talk about one of the best matchups in this game, and that is, of course, the goalie battle. Jake Oettinger versus Andrei Vasilevskiy. More on that after a quick break. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by our friends at SimpliSafe. Did you know that over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries and package thefts spike nationally? That's why our friends at SimpliSafe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system, so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Order your SimpliSafe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you get priority police response. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I would recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/LockedOnNHL today. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/LockedOnNHL. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. All right, let's close out this game day episode of Locked On Stars talking about one of the more intriguing aspects of this Stars Lightning matchup, and that is, of course, the goalie battle. Jake Oettinger and Andrei Vasilevskiy, 2 of the best netminders in the league at this moment. However, this game could also very well symbolize a potential changing of the guard. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Andrei Vasilevskiy is off to a little bit of a rough start this season. He's not horrible. I by no means think that his career is over or he is on a permanent decline, but he is struggling in the first month of the year. He's 28 years old, and 28 years old is so drastically different for a NHL goalie than it is for an NHL skater, whether that be a forward or defenseman. I mean, he's played 376 games so far in his career. You look at a guy like Ben Bishop, who at his peak was considered one of the best at the time. He only played 413 career games. Not everyone gets to be like Henrik Lundqvist, where you play nearly 900 games in your career. I mean, the goalies like Lundqvist are so special because they're able to play for so long at such a high level. And Vasilevskiy has been playing at a high level, but I mean, he's been used as the number one goalie for so long. He's gone on several deep postseason runs. I mean, the wear and tear, I think, is finally starting to rear its ugly head. I don't think that it's fully caught up with him. And I, again, by no means think that his career is ending or he is now a bad goalie. I still think that he's one of the very best in the game who's just having a rough start to this 22-23 campaign. But then on the other hand, you have Jake Oettinger, who is only 86 games into his NHL career and only 23 years old, but he has easily emerged as one of the best in the league. And it's just making for such an intriguing matchup. And I think that while Vasilevskiy continues to age, and who knows how much longer he'll play in this league, you have a guy like Jake Oettinger, who has now emerged as kind of maybe the headliner of this next great generation of NHL goaltenders. Him, Carter Hart, just a few that come to mind, some of the best in the game right now, especially younger goalies. And Jake especially is going to be very fun to watch in this matchup, because we talked about the end of last week, early on this week, that Jake doesn't play very many bad back-to-back games, but he does have a knack and a history of stringing together solid starts and solid outings. He's more likely to have back-to-back good games than he is back-to-back bad games. And Sunday's game was absolutely a great outing for Jake, maybe one of his best of the season. After Sunday's win, I think this would be a great time for him to get a little bit more momentum at his back and get some momentum at the back of the Stars. This would be an absolute perfect time for them to start clicking and buzzing as a team. They haven't had a win streak longer than 3 games this season. And of course, a win here would only be the second in a row, but there's a great opportunity for them to pick up 2 or 3 wins on this road trip and then come home. And they play the next several in the friendly confines of the American Airlines Center, where whenever they play there, they are a very difficult team to beat when they're at their best. And if they're able to continue to play at a high level on this road trip, I think that will carry over into the homestand. And so it'd be very interesting to see them string together a win streak that lasts longer than 3 games. And they even have some tough games coming up, even at home. The Islanders come and pay a visit. The Colorado Avalanche are coming into town. Some really difficult matchups coming up. Even the Blackhawks they play, and the Winnipeg Jets. A lot of divisional games coming up. And so it's really not easy goings for this team from now until the end of November. It lightens up. The schedule does a little bit in December, but this would be a great time for the Stars to come out and win some games in dominating fashion. Of course, you want Jake Oettinger to be the backbone of that, and I think this team plays better offensively whenever they know that Jake Oettinger is on his game and playing his absolute best. So this is going to be a big game for Jake to see if he can string together another solid performance against another high-powered offensive team that can definitely score in bunches. That top 6 and some of the top defensemen for this Lightning team are very, very dangerous and can strike, no pun intended, really at any given time. And so big game coming up. Jake Oettinger going up against Andrei Vasilevskiy should be a great goalie matchup, should be a great matchup overall. At the end of the day, I do think the Dallas Stars win this game. I think it'll be close, maybe a score of 3-2, maybe a 3-1 with an empty net goal coming for the Stars at the end of the matchup. And for the first goal of the game, I will go with Jamie Benn. Jamie Benn's been hot, and so I think that he will get at least 1 goal in this game, and I think personally that it will be the first of the game for the Stars. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Thank you again for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, and the follow button on your favorite podcasting platform. We are free and available no matter where or how you may choose to listen. You can also find us on social media at Locked On Stars on both Instagram and Twitter, as well as my personal Twitter account at Dane_Lewis. Thank you guys again for tuning in to today's episode, and we'll be back here tomorrow with a recap of the game and talking about everything that went down. And hopefully we're talking about a Stars win. But I hope you guys enjoy your Tuesday. Hope you enjoy the game, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.